Sid and Marty Croft were definitely one of the most influential producers on TV during the 1970s, especially on children's television, and produced many shows through their production company, Sid and Marty Croft Pictures. Their shows were usually fast-paced, energetic, a little out there and weird, fun, filled with vibrant colours, and cheesy low-budget special effects, with lots of puppetry. Their storylines were usually fantasy, with Stranger in Strangeland style stories, and usually set in an alternate universe or reality. Of all of their shows, Land of the Lost was the most imaginative and inventive, and dealt much more with science fiction. Land of the Lost ran for 4 seasons, from 1974 to 1976. The basic storyline and premise of the show followed the adventures of the Marshalls, Rick and his children, Will and Holly, who travel through a dimensional portal which throws them into a time warp, which takes them into an alternate reality, which is inhabited by dinosaurs. They meet a primitive group of people called the Pekuni, and the hostile humanoid lizard race called the Sleestack. They take up home base in a cave. Each episode was usually about the Marshall family trying to survive, trying to find a way back to their homeworld and timeline. Produced by Sid and Marty Croft and co-developed by Alan Fosco, the series actually featured some of the best science fiction writers who were very well respected in the science fiction community. Writers like Larry Niven, who wrote for shows like The Outer Limits and Star Trek the Animated Series. Others included Theodore Sturgeon, D.C. Fontana, Star Trek actor Walter Koenig, to writer David Gerrold, who was known for his work on the original series of Star Trek. He's mostly known for writing the classic episode, The Trouble with Tribbles. Gerrold's work on The Land of the Lost was uncredited, and he would claim that he largely helped create the concept of the show. Land of the Lost originally aired on NBC for Saturday mornings. The series was shot on a soundstage at General Service Studios in Hollywood for the first and second seasons, and Sid and Marty would make economical use of a small number of sets and scenic props that were rearranged frequently to create the vast jungles, ancient cities, and caves. Often, scale miniatures were used, with visual effects achieved by using rear projection techniques. Dinosaurs in the series were created by using a combination of stop-motion animation miniatures and occasional hand puppets for close-ups of dinosaur heads. The special effects footage was often reused.
Most of the show was shot in front of a blue screen, and the actors never really knew or saw all the effects or even the scenery behind them.
So the big problem there, which was like almost a disaster, was the projector that ran the film. So they had to have many engineers come in. And the reason for that is that the tape moves at 30 frames per second, and the film moves at 24. And that was the problem, how they could get that to work. And we were very lucky. There were always people to rally around us and support us. We were going into an area that no one had tried before, marrying the tape and the film. So we were a little prehistoric, when we did all this stuff, and it worked out in the end.
Spencer Milligan was cast as Rick Marshall, with Wesley playing his son, Will, while Kathy Coleman plays the daughter, Holly. Philip Paley would play Shaka, while Richard Kiel, known for playing Jaws in the James Bond movies, played Malik. Another character that was introduced in the series was Enoch, who was an Altrusian and is an intelligent predecessor to the Sleestack, who was pushed into the Land of the Lost by an unknown force long before the Marshalls arrived, and has been constantly trying to find a way back to his own time. For the third and final season, 2 new monsters were introduced, a 2-headed monster called Lulu, and Torchy, a fire-breathing monster. The dangerous T-Rex dinosaur outside of the cave was nicknamed Grumpy. Actor Wesley would in fact perform 3 songs at the end of 3 episodes of the 3rd season, with lyrics which would pertain to the lesson learnt from the episode. After the second season of the series, there would be a pay dispute between Spencer Milligan and Sid and Marty Croft. Milligan would unfortunately decide to leave the show after 2 seasons. Producers would handle Milligan's departure by adding a new character to the storyline of the first episode of the 3rd season. They would explain Rick's departure by saying that Rick might have returned home or not. So Rick's brother, Uncle Jack, played by Ron Harper, was added. They explained this arrival by saying that while searching for the trio, Uncle Jack is somehow transported to the Land of the Lost, reuniting with his nephew, Will, and his niece, Holly. Due to Milligan's departure, a crew member for the show stood in as Rick Marshall in the opening 3rd season credits, wearing a wig resembling Milligan's hair and standing with his back to the camera being transported out of the Land of the Lost. In the 3rd season, the Marshalls would move with Shaka from the cave to the Sleestack Temple. This is mainly due to the production company moving from the General Service Studios, where the first 2 seasons were shot, to Goldwyn Studios. In 1991, a new series of Land of the Lost was shown on Nickelodeon, followed by a comedy film version of the same name starring Will Ferrell. Land of the Lost was rather epic in its concept for a kids show, which was on a very limited budget. Land of the Lost was a clear departure from Sid and Marty Croft's other shows. With Land of the Lost, it was their intention to create a realistic fantasy world, while being aimed entirely for the kids. In the first season, the show was more serious in tone, but that quickly changed as the quality of the show dropped when the series progressed into the 2nd and 3rd season. Land of the Lost was a great kids show, and even with the bad special effects, was something special, with its highly imaginative storylines dealing in fantasy and science fiction. My name's Jonathan. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and like what you see on my channel, please subscribe, and if you would like to become a patron on my Patreon, click on the link below.